passionate leader who believes that all students should have access to quality and equitable public education. Some recent accomplishments include being awarded the 2016 Kahn Distinguished Principal Fellow and is now serving as an advisor to new fellows. Beyond being a principal, Dr. Skanes finds joy in presenting and delivering keynote addresses to encourage, empower, and promote academic success and racial equity. For those who know her, Dr. Skanes can be best described as a visionary leader who loves her students and believes in ensuring that they receive the necessary resources to prepare them for success at all levels in life. She holds several degrees, including an educational doctorate in educational leadership from National Louis University. Dr. Skanes is the loving wife to firefighter Chris Gaines, who is here supporting her today. And one of her most prized accomplishments is mothering 3 wonderful children who attend various Chicago public schools, of whom Imani is here today as well. In her spare time, Dr. Skanes enjoys spending time with her family or serving in leadership roles at her home church, Oakdale Covenant Church. So, Dr. Skanes is also a personal friend of mine, and I am so grateful for her being here today. And, you know, for those of us who know her, we know that she loves her students. She is principal to a school of 1,200 students, and I think they all know her by name and know and feel her love when they come into that building every day. So it is an honor to have her here. So with further ado, please help me in welcoming Dr. Skanes to the podium.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
So it's an honor to stand before you as we celebrate the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. While my biography holds me in high esteem as an accomplished school leader, at the heart of who I really am is a teacher and a servant of God. A teacher who seeks to engage, enlighten, and empower. So will you indulge me for just a moment in a teaching activity? All right. Okay. So one of my students, Erica, and one of my future students, Aaron, they'll pass out note cards to you. And so if you have an ink pen, you can pull it out. If not, we do have a few ink pens. And so you'll take a note card and then listen up for the directions. When you get your note card, you're going to do 2 things. On the left side of the note card, you are going to write the name of somebody who needs help, but that you're currently not helping. And then on the right side of the card, you're going to write the name of a marginalized group of people. Okay, so left hand, somebody that you know personally who needs help. And then on the right side, write the name of a marginalized group. And then I'll ask that you just hold on to that card. And we'll revisit it again soon. Instructionally speaking, I have just engaged you in what educators might describe as an anticipatory strategy. You are now anticipating what it is that I may have to offer you this afternoon. So thank you for allowing me to stand before you as we reflect on the life of one of the most iconic civil rights leaders in the history of the United States of America. And I will submit to you that there is not one person in this room who cannot describe at least one key detail of Dr. King's life and of his work. For example, some of us may already know that Dr. King's birth name was actually Michael and not Martin. However, in 1934, his father, who was the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, traveled to Germany and became inspired by the Protestant Reformation leader Martin Luther. As a result, Reverend King changed his own name as well as the name of his 5-year-old son, Michael, who later became the famous Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Many of us also know that Dr. King entered college at the age of 15. He was such a gifted student that he skipped the 9th and the 12th grade before entering Morehouse College in 1944. We've also learned in our studies that Dr. King was in prison nearly 30 times as he fought for equity and equality. Many of us know that before he was fatally gunned down on April 4th, 1968, he was nearly assassinated in Harlem while signing copies of his book. Some of us may or may not know that Dr. King's mother was also murdered by a bullet. As Mrs. King sat inside Ebenezer Baptist Church on June 30th, 1974, playing the organ for a Sunday service, a gunman rose from the pew, drew 2 guns, and began to fire shots. One of those bullets struck and killed Mrs. King, who died steps from where her son had preached nonviolence. And without a doubt, we are all very familiar with one of his most notable pieces of work, which was the delivery of the I Have a Dream speech that was delivered on August 28, 1963. In his speech, Dr. King foreshadowed his own death. The resonating repetition of a promised dream has come to serve as one of the most memorable parts of the speech. However, I want to take a moment to highlight the parts of the speech that tapped into my own social consciousness. In 1963, more than 50 years ago, Dr. King spoke these words, and he said, "But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free." Dr. King goes on to say, in a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men, as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. So we have come to cash this check. A check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. Dr. King also goes on to caution the listeners about a delayed sense of urgency in forging ahead with the promise of rights promised to everyone. Dr. King goes on to state, "We have come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. There is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation and to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. There will never be rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted her citizenship rights. So again, it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. There will never be rest or tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights." Dr. King is clear about one thing. He's clear that the work of engaging in civil rights matters should be marked as urgent. He goes on to emphasize the urgency of activism in his third book entitled Why We Can't Wait, which was actually written about the same time that he delivered the I Have a Dream speech. And while the book Why We Can't Wait might not have been as popular as the I Have a Dream speech, King explained why he opposed the gradualist approach to civil rights. See, the gradualist approach is the concept of approaching a desired end in gradual stages. In other words, the approach moves slowly. Dr. King asserted that African Americans have waited over 3 centuries to receive the rights granted to them by God and the U.S. Constitution. He emphasized that we could no longer be patient, and he developed these ideas further in the text. Why? We can't wait. And so here we are again today, more than 50 years after Dr. King's assassination, to continue the conversation about the necessity of civil rights. I'm here today to speak to you as professionals and to remind you in 2020, while we must stand on Dr. King's values and forge ahead with a sense of urgency, we simply cannot wait. How can we be comfortable with not fully engaging in civic activism? How can we be comfortable with not fully engaging in social development? How can we be comfortable with not fully engaging in the political process when America continues to be in a state of emergency? How can we wait when approximately only 65% of black males graduated from high school right here in Chicago in 2018? How can we wait when the college graduation rate for black males is approximately 35%? What happens to a community when we lack an educated populace? How can we wait when we still live in one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States of America? How can we wait? And on Wednesday, January 15th, 2020, just a few days ago, which would have been Dr. King's 91st birthday, I drove onto the campus of the University of Chicago, and I found myself wondering, why are we waiting? And as I drove down 57th Street, I could not help but notice the hustle and bustle of college students swiftly moving about the campus, clearly in a hurry to continue their academic pursuits. And as I kept observing the eager students, it became clear to me that not many of those students look like me.
That's it.
Or my children, or the students that I serve every day, or the almost 800,000 other black people who live in Chicago. And I was left wondering, how can we live in a city with one of the most highly selective universities in the country, and black people still continue to be underrepresented?
That's it.
And how can we wait? And as that sad reality tugged at my heartstrings, and I parked my car and I exited on the corner of 57th and University, I was momentarily paralyzed at what I observed. And while this is in no means to demean anybody's profession or to demean anybody's work, I noticed that there were 4 young black people, and they had on nice, crisp white shirts and red ties and black vests. But I noticed that they were standing by a back door, and it looked like they were on a break from a cafeteria job. And so the tears nearly formed in my eyes because I couldn't figure out on how on the 91st birthday of Dr. King, we still have black people serving food on a college campus to people who don't look like them.
That's it.
And I found myself wondering, how can we wait? And as medical professionals, you may be wondering how a connection can be made between your role and the fight for civil rights. Well, let me submit to you that people cannot actively engage in their communities or in civil rights activism when they're not healthy. Your work is urgent. It's critical that people, all people, especially in disenfranchised communities, have access to high-quality healthcare options. We need hospital administrators. We need doctors. We need nurses. We need medical technicians. And we need every single person who works in the medical profession to ensure that people, our people, and that all people are healthy enough to engage in the fight for justice. So we need you. We cannot wait. The time to move to action is not tomorrow, not when we write a strategic plan, not when we're looking for someone to be the leader. The time to make a change is now. We cannot wait. The time to ensure equity for all people is now. And you are just the person to ensure that equity happens for all people. Certainly, if a little black boy by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was born during the height of racial tension in the Deep South, could find the courage, if he could find the courage to lead and to stand up and to speak out against racial injustice, certainly you can find time to help that person whose name you've written on the left side of that card. Certainly, you can find the time to help out that marginalized group, even if it's just for 2 hours a month. The time is now, my friends. We cannot wait. I will not wait. And every morning when I get up to serve the students at my school, I realize the urgency in my work. I will not wait. I cannot wait. And as I close for today, I want you to listen to the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I want you to flip that card over. And I want you to think about what you're going to do to support that person whose name you've written on that card. I want you to think about what you're going to do to support that disenfranchised, marginalized group. It only takes one action, one act of kindness, one resource to change the trajectory of someone's life. It only takes one person to change an entire community. You have the power right inside of yourself to change the entire world. So I'll leave you with Dr. King's quote and a reminder that we simply cannot wait. Time itself is neutral. It can either be used destructively or constructively. More and more and more, I feel that people of ill will have used time much more effectively than the people of goodwill. We will have to repent to this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men willing to work, to be co-workers with God. And without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of social stagnation. We must use time creatively in the knowledge that the time is always right to do what is right. My friends, will you keep waiting? Will you keep being silent? Like the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I will not wait. Will you?